this is how we do it.
This is The Guy Gordon Show on News Talk 760 WJR. Here's special guest host, ML Elrick.
Hello, Detroit. It's ML Elrick of the Detroit Free Press coming to you live from Detroit's East Side. It's always nice to fill in for Guy Gordon because I appreciate how he's given us access to his extensive collection of hip hop music, which sets a nice tone for the show. And I understand when he gets back, he'll be releasing some previously unheard Tupac Shakur tracks. So that's something to look forward to when Guy gets back in the jump chair. But I'm happy to be here with you today. We're going to cover a lot of topics. We're, of course, always looking forward to hearing from you. Whenever I fill in here, I always let people know, and I believe it, that's why I say it, that the best part of the show is you. So we're going to want to hear from you today at 1-800-859-0957, 1-800-859-0WJR. But our first guest is an enemy of the people, maybe you people, but I have to tell you, officially and unofficially, he's a good friend of mine and someone who I admire greatly. It's the editor of the Detroit Free Press, Peter Badia. Peter, thanks for joining us.
Hey, glad to be with you. Although I want to hear the Tupac tracks myself.
Well, as a loyal WGR listener, you just have to wait for Guy to get back.
Okay.
And I understand he actually does some cutting and scratching on some of them. So, being a younger guy, I don't know what that means, but an old soul like Guy, he's got some Grandmaster Flash in his background. People don't know that, but that's why you listen to WJR. It's the guest hosts who really bring the truth. But the reason we have Peter with us today is because I wanted to talk about an article that you may have heard about, you may have read, that popped a couple weeks ago about Donald Trump and some comments he's made about the military. Now, we're not here to debate what he had to say about it, whether that's meritorious, whether that undermines his ability to be commander in chief, or whether that's something you should consider as you go to the ballot box. And we hope that you all will vote, whether from home, by mail, absentee, or early at your clerk's office. And we don't care who you vote for. Just please be a part of our democracy. But the reason Peter is here is because one of the topics that has been used to, I think, challenge this story and many other stories that we see coming out of Washington is that it's based on anonymous sources. Since then, we have heard from some people who have stepped forward, including people who have confirmed this for Fox News, a very White House-friendly news organization, in some of their shows, that confirm these reports. But the reason why I want to talk about this is because anonymous sources are things that people like Peter take very seriously, things that investigative reporters like myself take very seriously. And Peter, I'm just going to start off by saying, when a reporter or an editor comes to you and says, "Hey, I've got an anonymous source," what's your first reaction?
First reaction is I want to know why the source has to be anonymous. I want to know why the source is essential to publishing whatever story it is we're talking about. And depending on the story, I want to know who the source is.
So you don't say, "Hot damn, this must be a good one. Let's fire up the website. Let's get the presses running early. We're going to do an extra edition here. This is what we live for."
No, I mean, there are obviously stories of great magnitude that, like the one we're talking about, that don't happen without anonymous sources. But my view is that the use of anonymous sources needs to be rare and infrequent, and only when there's no other way to get the story in front of the public.
And I'm not just saying this because Peter just authorized my time card, but I agree. When I have to do a story that has anonymous sources, and it happens from time to time, it's almost, there's a celebration that it's a big, sensitive story that somebody's talking to you about, but it almost feels like there's a measure of defeat because I, as a reporter, have not been able to convince somebody to put their name on the record. Now, I understand why people don't do that, and particularly in Washington these days, where we've seen people come forward. I'm thinking of a certain individual named Colonel Vindman, who saw his career destroyed for trying to fulfill his obligation and the oath he took. But we're seeing inspectors general in Washington who were put in those positions specifically to cite problems and to cite things that the American people should know so they can make their minds up about, be retaliated against, either be forced to leave or decide that their position is no longer tenable. So now more than ever, it does seem like if we're going to get people to tell the truth, they're going to need a measure of protection, and that's anonymity. So So let me do a little role playing here. Boss, I've got a great story. You trust me. You trust my sources. You know my methodology. I tell you that it's ready to go, but I can't name my source in tomorrow's paper or online. What process have I just triggered?
Its own investigative process, if you will. I mean, I would sit down with you. More likely, the first conversation would be with your immediate editor before it came to me. But we'd want to know, why does the source need to be anonymous? What is the source's reason for being anonymous? Is it personal safety? Is it protecting their job? Whatever the case might be. I mean, we obviously have a rich whistleblower tradition in this country, and oftentimes those people need to be anonymous, at least initially, to bring forward what they need to know. And some of the great stories in history, of course, Watergate immediately jumps to mind for my generation, don't happen without anonymous sources. But, you and I would be talking about, okay, who is this? What are they saying? Why is it important? Can you write the story without the source? Because that's really an important question. Do you have other sources that support it? Sometimes some stories are, it's relatively minor, and it's an easier decision, frankly, because there's not as much at stake. Like, I don't know, a player agent is nudging us and saying, hey, he's going to be traded. The Tigers are trading him to the Yankees, or whatever the case might be. That's hardly a matter of national security, unless you're a Tigers fan, I suppose. And whereas a lot of the stuff that's going on in Washington, there's a culture of anonymous sources that's existed for generations. I have a friend who used to cover the national, cover intelligence. And that, you don't write on the record stories with intelligence sources who are telling you what Al-Qaeda's up to, or whatever the case might be.
And I know in my experience, we've often told agencies that we're reporting on cases that they've handled, hey, we're getting ready to report this. Is there anything that we're about to report that may endanger an ongoing investigation or endanger the lives of someone, either agents or people who are involved in the case? So this is nothing we take lightly. And it's certainly been my experience at other places I've worked, and I probably need to brush up on my policies at the Free Press, but I'm aware of situations where if there's an anonymous source who has something really negative to say about someone, where news organizations won't even use direct quotes or allow anonymous sources to, they have to stick strictly to factual matters that are not shaded in any way by their experiences or their opinions.
Yeah, that's really important. Oftentimes people want to be anonymous so they can assassinate someone's character in one fashion or another, or be critical of them. That happens a lot in big businesses, for example, and you just can't go there. I mean, if it's fact-based, if it's informational, but if it's somebody just trashing somebody and they want to be off the record, we wouldn't go there. It's not fair in and of itself. It's just not fair.
And Peter, we're gonna go to traffic real quickly, but before we go, I understand that the Free Press is asking people to give them $1 for some news. How does that work?
Oh yes, we just a month ago launched a paywall which basically means that some of our best work is behind a wall, and that we're asking readers to make a small payment. Basically, the initial rate is $3 for 3 months. Of course, it'll go up because those kinds of things always do. But to have access to all of our best work.
So if you want to see our next big anonymous story, it's going to be a while, but check it out at freep.com. Take my boss's advice, because the money you give him, at some point, I think he's going to pass along to me. So, Peter, thanks for joining us here on the Guy Gordon Show, and we'll catch you at the next hip hop concert, it sounds like.
All right, I'll see you there.
Okay. Keep it real. And we are going to our traffic here. WJR Traffic is brought to you by our fine team that doesn't miss anything happening on the streets. And here they are.
You may find some road construction on the right lane of northbound DeQuinder between 11 and 12 Mile Road, so use caution there. Also, construction is working on DeQuinder in both directions between Utica Road and Collins Avenue. There's road construction working on the right lane of 10 Mile in both directions between I-94 and Gratiot. And you may find road construction working on 23 Mile in both directions at Van Dyke. I'm Pete Spivak, WJR, Traffic and Weather First.
Boy, some fantastic weather unfolding for much of this week. Comfortable low humidity across Michigan. Nothing on the old weather radar today. And winds out of the north, low humidity. Our temperatures in the upper 60s this afternoon and well below average. Get 10 degrees colder than average. 48 degrees tonight. And knocking on the door of some records across parts of Michigan tonight. Sunshine 72 and upper 70s for Tuesday and Wednesday. I'm meteorologist Scott Laurie. More on News Talk 760 WJR.
All right. Well, that mystery has been answered. It is Pete Spivak.
Okay. Master P.
That's right. Since we're on the hip hop version.
And to answer your question, yes, we will take calls.
Okay, great. Did you ever watch Mad TV?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember when Ari Spears would do a Master P imitation?
He did one of everybody. He would do like DMX and.
Yeah, he was so good, man. So good.
Let's see. Mark Gardner checking in. Clay Jerky, who is ML. Well, ML's a new guy around here. I think we found him up in the Upper Peninsula and brought him back down here for a shot.
And the pride of Alpena, although it's not quite Upper Peninsula. Can people on the live stream hear us while we're in the break?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, great. So we can. Okay. So, hey, Clay, thanks for checking the show out. Obviously, you know Guy, but I'm a longtime investigative reporter in Detroit. I've been at the Free Press several different times. Also worked at Channel 4 and at Fox 2 News, where we knocked a lot of bad guys out of office and we exposed a lot of knuckleheads.
Yeah, you knocked down. You're one of the ones who got Kwame.
He kind of got himself. I'll just say we stuck his leg out when we saw him running and he tripped, which is what happens when you wear those slippery, fancy shoes.
Yeah,
Patty,
so
thanks for checking us out. Hey, St. Charles, good to see. I got to get back to St. Charles. I'm very slowly getting back to church because of social distancing, but I've been at Mass the last couple weeks at St. Clair out on the front lawn, which is nice. So we'll have to see what we can do over there at St. Charles.
Good for you. I haven't been to church since catechism.
I went to a friend of mine's 50th wedding anniversary being memorialized at St. Matthew's. And I thought, you know what? I can't wait for his 100th, so I better get there. And it was fine. There was a lot of room, and it was good for the soul.
Actually,
so thanks, Mark. I appreciate it.
I've been to church twice during this pandemic. Both were for weddings, so I lied.
Well, just make sure that the next time you don't go isn't for a funeral, because there's a lot of people who just go to church that last time. That may be too late.
Yeah, it is too late. Here we go. 18 seconds. 28 will be your out here.
The Guy Gordon Show, 760. Here's special guest host, ML Elrick.
Special guest host. I like the sound of that.
Here's special guest host, ML Elrick.
Just one more time. Give it to me.
Here's special guest host, ML Elrick.
Now, I know you wouldn't leave Guy hanging that long, so we're going to have to work on this during the next break. But folks, ML Elrick here, investigative reporter at the Detroit Free Press. Pleased to be filling in for Guy Gordon and taking your calls at 1-800-859-0957. That's 1-800-859-0WJR. I'm also the host of a podcast called ML's Soul of Detroit, where we talk a lot about behind-the-scenes journalism stories and try and take you inside the business and discuss issues just like this with anonymous sources. And we've got a message from Robert at Sterling Heights saying it's suspicious that all these anonymous stories seem to be about Trump. Well, certainly he's in power, and usually it's the people who are in power that people are most concerned about being retaliated against by. But I'll tell you about a story that I did involving someone in power that involves some anonymous sources. A fellow named Kwame Malik Kilpatrick. He was mayor of Detroit at one time. Big Democrat. And when I say big Democrat, I mean like 6'4", 280, maybe 320 if he wasn't watching what he ate. And there were a lot of anonymous stories about him, and he was Democrat. So certainly when news organizations and reporters look at anonymous stories, we don't just look at what the party affiliation is. In fact, we never look at what the party affiliation is. We just look at who's doing something good, who's doing something bad. But we love getting the feedback, and let's jump into some calls here. You can call us 1-800-859-0957. Greg from Shelby Township asked, does the type of newspaper determine if it gets put in a story? Greg, it certainly doesn't. It all depends. Is it a good newspaper or a bad newspaper? Bad newspapers don't get good stories. So Robert from Sterling Heights. Robert, we're just talking a little bit about your issue. It's great to have you join us here on the Guy Gordon Show.
Well, thank you, special guest host ML. I appreciate it.
Robert, you only have to say it once.
Well, I'm hoping getting over the Lions loss again. It was just devastating to me, but such is life. But the point I wanted to bring out is not only are they against Trump, and I understand that he's the president, he's the top guy, but there's never any positive stories about him. Never like, hey, there's a possible peace deal in the Middle East. That's never got leaked anonymously. And I could tell you this. I see a lot of reporting that's going on that's just poor reporting. No, who, what, where, why, when. Now, someone just broke a story about 342 students were tested COVID positive this weekend, okay? But they didn't tell me how many people died from it. They didn't tell me how many people were hospitalized. They didn't tell me how people were on ventilators. They didn't say how many people were just asymptomatic or just mild symptoms. They didn't say. I think that's a very important part of the story to report something like that.
So, Robert, those are excellent points. I'm going to try and take them one at a time if I can. So I read the Washington Post a lot and the New York Times, clearly not the favorite papers of the current president. But I will tell you, I first heard about the improved relations between Israel and I believe it's the United Arab Emirates from the Washington Post. I just heard, I think is it Bahrain that Israel is now normalizing relationships with? I heard about that
correct.
In the Washington Post. So those are enemies of Trump. At least he would have us believe that. And those are stories that I think you would consider to be good and positive developments involving the president and some of the diplomatic efforts he's made. And I did read those in the mainstream media. I did read those in the Washington Post. So I think we may be painting too broad a brush there. And in terms of the students who are sick, there's a couple problems, and I'll just tell you this as a reporter who's had to deal with hospitals when it comes to issues. They cannot, by law, discuss in detail a lot of treatment issues. So who's on a ventilator, who's not on a ventilator is not something we're going to be told because it's private healthcare information. When you genericize things just by saying it's 342 people, the odds of identifying someone are very slim. But I do want to address a point that you bring up that I think undermines the seriousness of this pandemic and the coronavirus and the COVID-19 disease that it causes in people. The fact that someone's not on a ventilator, the fact that someone is not walking into the light and about to meet St. Pete does not mean this is not a serious thing. Let me tell you, as someone who had COVID-19 and whose wife had COVID-19, I was uncomfortable. I was disoriented. And fortunately, I don't seem to have suffered any lasting effects, although some people do. But my wife thought she was making her transition. This is a very scary thing. It's very dangerous, even if you survive. And last point on not being able to tell who's asymptomatic. Nobody knows if you're asymptomatic because the thing is you don't show any symptoms. So they can't tell you. That's why we're not giving you numbers on asymptomatic people. But to people who would diminish the health risks here just by saying, you didn't die, what's the big deal? As someone who was sick, let me tell you something. I didn't die, but it was a big deal. But Robert, we really appreciate your call and we appreciate you challenging the orthodoxy because I'm someone who thinks the status quo only exists for people like me and people like you to take shots at. So Robert, really appreciate it. Thanks for giving us a call there from the Golden Corridor. Ken and Allen Park, what's going on, my man? I see that you're worried about the election or you're concerned about the election. What's the good word from downriver?
Well, the good word is everything's beautiful here. But I got a question for you, ML. I was just wondering how many days before the election will the 4 anonymous people reveal themselves?
That's a good question. And you bring up a great point that I didn't get to ask my boss about or to mention while we were talking to Peter Body, the editor of the Free Press. Oftentimes, anonymous sources will reveal themselves. Now, Deep Throat, Peter mentioned Deep Throat, one of the famous sources for Woodward and Bernstein in the Watergate investigation. One thing people don't really know about Deep Throat is that he didn't provide that much information for a lot of the stories that were done. And that even when he did provide investigation or information, it was just like a lead. It was something to follow up on and to independently confirm. That's why you hear people say multiple anonymous sources, because we don't take anybody at their word. There's something that journalists are taught that I teach my students when I have a class, and that's if your mother says she loves you, check it out. We don't assume anything. But I will tell you, since those anonymous sources talked to the Atlantic about what they heard and saw, other people have come forward on the record to confirm those things. So sometimes anonymous sources are sort of like when you flood the backyard before you go fishing. When you flood that backyard, a lot of worms pop up, and some of those worms have names, and they have been named. So that information is out there. But Ken, always good to hear from my friends downriver. I used to date somebody in Allen Park. I don't want to talk about that because my wife is in the other room. That's what happens when you work from home. But I love the park. So thanks very much. Sean in Grosse Pointe, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, anonymous sources are a big part of the democratic process. Without anonymous sources, we wouldn't have had the Pentagon Papers. The Vietnam War would have dragged on. Like you said, we wouldn't have had Deep Throat. Watergate wouldn't have happened. Kwame Kilpatrick. There's a variety of different things that have happened, and positive things have transpired because of anonymous sources. And Trump proves to us that we need anonymous sources because he ruins people that come out and speak openly. I mean, Dr. Fauci his family needs protection because people are going after him just because he speaks truth to power. Look at Lieutenant Colonel Vindeman. He came out as a whistleblower, and Trump ruined his career. I mean, it's the reason why we have anonymous sources, because these people can't, ruin their careers by coming out of the light, but they need to speak out. And Trump has made it possible for anonymous sources to come out over and over because they have to be anonymous.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that anonymous sources aren't just people in Washington. They can be people who tell us about police corruption. They can be people who tell us about corruption in Macomb County. There are a lot of people who have contacted the FBI and who have contacted newspapers who haven't said, I know some stuff that's going on that's illegal, put my name on the front page, but they've said, I'll tell you what I know, and I'm scared as hell, but if you protect my identity, I'll help you get a story that everybody deserves to know. And the other thing that you have to bear in mind with anonymous sources, particularly in situations when that source is close to somebody who's doing something inappropriate or illegal, there aren't that many people who know it. And so even when they're anonymous, they're exposing themselves to great danger. But we're going to be back with more of your calls here on the Guy Gordon Show. Give us a call. We got plenty of room on the phone lines, 1-800-859-0957. We got some great guests next hour, too. So stick around. But first, we're going to take a quick break for traffic and for news.
That pause you hear, ML, is just a commercial we're playing going over the stream.
Okay.
We'll be.
If you're heading down to Monroe County, there's road construction along southbound I-75 between Erie Road and the Michigan-Ohio state line. Right now, there's about a 15-minute delay working within that stretch, so do use caution. Construction is working on Orchard Lake Road in both directions between Grand River and 696. And you'll find road construction working on Merriman Road in both directions between Plymouth Road and Schoolcraft. I'm Pete Spivak, WJR, Traffic and Weather First.
Loads of sunshine, comfortable low humidity, and some crisp nighttime low temps. Like tonight, we're talking some upper 40s here in Detroit and even some 30s up across the UP. Some parts of Michigan flirting with record cold tonight. 67 our high today, 48 tonight in town. Sunshine Tuesday, 72. And upper 70s Wednesday with sunshine. I'm meteorologist Scott Laurie. More on News Talk 760 WJR.
All right. Got a couple of. I don't know. Was that breaking news that you had COVID?
No, I mean, when I was at it happened shortly after I got to the Free Press. I went and shot a video of myself getting tested at the state fairgrounds. And then I wrote about what it was like to get tested and why I got tested and everything. And then Teresa and I were both on Flashpoint some time ago. So So yeah, so no, it's we figured, and I was very careful, but it's just it's there's only so much you can do. So
Right. Well,
but
and plus, so when was that when you were diagnosed? Was it early on in all this, or?
yeah, it would have been. So I started back at the Free Press in the first week of March. And to answer Sandy's question, I did not get any prescription that helped me with COVID. I had had a cough since early January, one of those dry coughs. And I also do a charity hockey game outside in Clark Park. So I'm outside skating, I'm coughing, I'm going to concerts. All I had was a cough. Nobody thought it was anything more than a cough. And I don't think it was.
Yeah, nobody knew about it back then either.
But I had it for so long, and my doctor's like, it's not that. But they had no testing either, so it's hard to know. But at any rate, one day I had a fever, so my wife said, okay, you definitely are getting tested now. So she beat my doctor down. I got a prescription. I made an appointment at the state fairgrounds, and they had just opened. So I figured I would shoot some video of myself while I was doing it, just to show people what it's like. And then when the test came back and they told me I had it, I was like, are you kidding me? I don't feel that bad. But for people who just say, if you didn't die, what's the big deal? Say, let me tell you something. It is a big deal. And if everybody in my house had gotten it, that would have been terrible. I mean, nobody wants to come over to your house and take care of you when you have COVID-19.
Yeah, just drop the groceries and leave.
Yeah, and people did. I can't tell you how many people left oranges and things, and it was very humbling to see how many people reached out to us, but they didn't literally reach out to us because nobody wants to touch you.
They sent thoughts and prayers, but left you alone.
Yeah. We'll pour some soup through the mail slot.
I mean, to me, well, number one, you don't know what the long-term effects are going to be, even if you didn't have bad symptoms. And it also looks like getting that test done doesn't look like it's a whole lot of fun either.
It's not the most. I still prefer that to the prostate check, but yeah, it's nothing that you would go out of your way to have done. And for all these people who say, "Oh, you're alive," well, Magic Johnson is in the Basketball Hall of Fame. He may be a billionaire by now, and he has AIDS and he's alive. But if you asked him, "Hey, Magic, would you rather not have AIDS?" I think he'd say, "Yes, I would rather not have AIDS, even though I'm alive and well and rich as hell."
Right,
So,
exactly.
It's just a specious argument for people who are trying to diminish something. And I guarantee you, everybody who says that is probably in the group that coughed in my face and gave it to me.
Right. Well, I remember when this, I don't want to say first started, but when we were first made aware of it, I feel like life was just a big cycle of 2-week periods waiting to see if you got COVID from that one time you think you might have gotten COVID. Like, oh, I ate a French fry without washing my hands. Someone next to me sneezed and I noticed had a mask on. So, I mean, it's even if you don't get it, it's exhausting. It's mentally exhausting.
It's really made us look at a lot of things that we just did before in a whole new light. And it's tricky. And I see people on the left and on the right who don't wear their masks. I've been up to Lansing for the Second Amendment rallies, and I've been on the streets of Detroit for the Black Lives Matter things. And there are people on all parts of the political spectrum who are only too happy to sweat on you. But
yeah. Well, and what drives me nuts are the people, not even the people who have it under their nose, which is incorrect, but the people who have it down. Like they have it on their face,
the
but
chin
it's just,
strap.
Yeah, I don't get that.
Yeah.
On a different note, ML, I just reordered our calls. It's underneath the line there.
Okay.
You may have to scroll down.
So is it Brad who's on top, then Jay, then Ron? Okay. So I may try and just answer some of these and go to them. But if I call them out, you're able to grab them?
Yeah.
Yep, Mike can punch them up.
Okay, sounds good.
I'm like a genie. You just say the name and where they're from, and I'll punch them up.
Wow, things are so nice. How much time do we have till we're back?
We're about 1:08.
Okay.
Away. So Clay says the prostate check isn't bad, so a Q-tip up the nose is better. I haven't had either test yet, so I can't answer that.
I guess it depends on your doctor. My doctor has medium-sized hands, but I wish he had, I wish I was getting my prostate checked by ET, because he seems to make everything feel better, even though you end up getting that drumstick in the
Or maybe the Men in Black, they can just wipe your memory clean afterwards.
Yeah, I think I want to know exactly what happened to me, just so that people don't feel like, while we're in there, let's, leave a firecracker.
That's where I left my car keys.
Yeah, exactly.
42 will be your next break, by the way.
Okay.
So
I'm always happy to see doctors weren't wearing class rings.
Okay. Hey, on that note, we're back in 10 seconds.
Okay.
This is The Guy Gordon Show on News Talk 760 WJR. Here's special guest host, ML Elrick.
Hey, my friends, it's great to be with you here on the Guy Gordon Show. We have a terrific couple hours lined up. You just heard from Peter Bodia, the editor of the Detroit Free Press, talking about anonymous sources. I think you can find that, if you missed it, on our website, WJR.com. Next hour, we're going to be joined by Lomas Brown, who sat through yet another terrible Lions game. So I don't know if that really helps narrow down when that game happened or not. And we'll be joined by Detroit Free Press reporter Teresa Baldus, who has been trying like 100,000 Michiganians, or Michiganders if you prefer, to get her unemployment check. And she wrote about her experience, and there's some information there that you may be able to use and you may be able to identify with. But first of all, we want to get through some more of your calls here at 1-800-859-0957, 1-800-859-0WJR. I'm so glad to see so many people reaching out to us. I want to just address a quick point by Brad from Ann Arbor. It says Trump gets small positive coverage, but the negative is bigger. And I want to tell you a little something about a theory that I have that I talk a lot about on my podcast, and I talk about when I go see community groups. Trump and Kwame Kilpatrick are almost exactly the same. They are constantly criticizing and trying to diminish the media because they can't fight the facts. So their whole thing is not to try and fight the truth, but to try and fight the truth tellers. And I say that not because I'm trying to diminish President Trump. I'm saying it because I've seen this happen when Democrats were in charge, and I'm seeing it happen when a Republican is in charge. Never do they ask for a correction. Never do they tell you what really happened. They just try and make you think that people like myself and my colleagues at the Free Press and in the broadcast media are lying to them, but they can't tell you what the lie is. So I just want to suggest to you that maybe the lie is on their lips. And I'll just say one other thing. Brad mentioned that Trump does get some positive coverage, and I appreciate you acknowledging that, but he says the negative coverage is bigger. Again, I'm going to use my Kwame Kilpatrick analogy, because there are a lot of negative stories about Kwame Kilpatrick. I think we all know now that it's because Kwame Kilpatrick did a lot of negative things. So if you're seeing a lot of headlines you don't like, it's not time to cancel your subscription. It's time to wonder who the hell is doing all those things that are keeping reporters like me so busy. Anyway, I really appreciate that point, Brad. Jay in Farmington Hills asked, why don't we see anonymous sources in larger stories? Well, I would say that story in the Atlantic, in which 4 anonymous sources accused the president of the United States of not respecting the military, and in fact skipping a Memorial Day event because he was worried it would mess up his hair. That's a pretty big story, and those were anonymous sources. But Jay, really appreciate the point. We're going to go to Ann Arbor, where Ron says he heard something that Michael Bloomberg said that has him a little concerned. Ron, what's on your mind today?
Hey, good morning or afternoon, Emma. When they were talking about during the debates, am I mistaken? Did Michael Bloomberg not say that his newspaper or his news group was only going to investigate Trump and not any of the other Democrat people who were running for office? Did I mishear that? Or am I mistaken? But I thought he was only going to investigate Trump, but not any of the other Democrats that were running for office. Do you remember hearing anything like that, or am I mistaken?
Ron, I have to tell you, I don't watch a lot of television, which I know sounds weird from someone who used to be on television. Maybe that's why I don't watch it. I'm afraid I'm going to find somebody as bad as I was on TV. But I did not see that debate. I did not hear that. But if that was the case, I would be staggered, because no news organization wants to be seen as partisan. No news organization wants to be labeled as untrustworthy. And Bloomberg News is one of the largest and most successful news organizations in the country, if not the world. So I'd be surprised if he said that. But if privately he said, I'm not going to attack fellow Democrats, I'm only going to attack Donald Trump, or even publicly on the debate stage, if he said, I'm not going to criticize you guys, I'm only going to criticize the president, that would make sense to me. But that doesn't necessarily mean that his corporation would follow suit. So Ron, I'm afraid I can't confirm or deny that to you, but it's an interesting point. And for anyone masochistic enough to go back and watch those debates, I think the answer lies in those tapes. But I'm looking forward to the next debates. The last debates, I kind of feel like I got away with not having to watch that. But Ron, thanks again for your call. Another comment from somebody in Ann Arbor, Michael, says Vindman wasn't proven truthful. I don't think that's accurate, Michael, but if you have some evidence that Vindman was lying, all the people who testified supported Vindman. But if you have some evidence, please give us a call back and let us know what that is. Paul in Brighton, you've got a point about anonymous sources outside of the media world. I'm kind of fascinated to hear what's on your mind with that. Thanks for giving us a call.
You bet. Law enforcement uses anonymous sources all the time. It's what we call informants. And in terms of the criminal in chief, he was all happy clappy that El Chapo was finally busted, and I guarantee you that El Chapo was sunk by anonymous sources. We have the FBI witness protection list, and you'll never know who those people were, and you could be busted and spend doing a lot of hard time based on information provided by an anonymous source. But you see, the sources aren't really anonymous because the reporters know the identity of these people, and so do law enforcement. And those people have been vetted by those reporters and by the law enforcement. So it's not like the anonymous source just phoned it in and that's what we're running with. You see what I mean?
Yeah, and even with law enforcement, they're often called confidential informants. They have to record somewhere. When you have what they call a CI, you can't just say, well, Shaky Jake on the corner told me he knew who robbed the bank. If you're truly going to be in law enforcement confidential informant, that has to be documented somewhere, and you have to have some track record that what you say is truthful, because people snitch on folks all the time, not because they care about justice, but because they want to get somebody in trouble. But that's an excellent point. And the FBI, when you look at some of their reports, and I've been privileged to look at some, in fact, if you go to the Free Press, you can see an investigation I did into a Detroit City Councilman, Gabe Leland, where we had secret FBI recordings, and you can listen to the secret FBI recordings of Mr. Leland saying some things that I don't think anybody in Detroit would be proud to have a lawmaker say. But they have confidential human assets. Those, again, are sources whose names are not going to be disclosed because it would endanger them, and it might make the investigation falter. So great point. Really appreciate you dialing in from Brighton, Paul. We're going to take a quick break now for those of you going to Brighton or elsewhere to figure out the best way to get there on our fantastic Michigan highways.
If you're heading down to Monroe County, there's road construction along southbound I-75 between Erie Road and the Michigan-Ohio state line.
No.
Pardon me?
ML Lomas is here, so I'm going.
Oh, hey, Lomas, how are you?
Oh, I muted him. My bad.
How you doing today?
Good. So I noticed on the anniversary of not completing the process, someone really didn't complete the process.
It's always like that, isn't it?
Now, is it harder when that happens when you're on the team than when you're in the broadcast booth?
Oh yeah, definitely. It definitely does. Yeah. So it's tough, man. It's tough. Yeah, it's tough.
Oh, well, it's what can I say?
I know.
It's kind of, you hope tomorrow comes a lot sooner and a lot better.
Oh man. So, and then we also hope this not forecasting of what's going to come too. Because, man, this could be a long, long year for the Lions if this is going to keep happening.
Well, I wonder with that too. Do you think this team has the strength internally to shake something like this off, or do they go off the rails this early already?
Man, this is a tough one because just look at their schedule. I mean, you got Green Bay, you talking about New Orleans coming up, so it's tough. I mean, these first 4 games before you get to a bye week, you could be out of it before you get to the bye week if you're not careful.
Oh boy.
I know. Tell me about it.
That makes it the goodbye week.
I know.
Like not good, but
that's
goodbye.
Right. Goodbye. That's right.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you joining in. We appreciate what you've had to witness for us, since normally there's 80,000 other people who have to sit through that. But
and you know what? I think the guys were lucky that the fans weren't there, because man, the fans would have let them have it leaving that field if they would have been there. So they probably lucked out by the fans not being there.
Hey, Lomas, this may be a question everyone knows. I don't. The crowd noise, is that piped in on TV, or can you guys hear it at the field?
I can only hear it when the headphones were on, man. Every time our headphones were off, we took them off. It was so eerie.
I was going to say that's got to be weird calling a game in a empty stadium. I mean, because probably as broadcasters, you guys your inflection feeds off of it.
Exactly right.
You're also used to it being on the field too.
I know. Yeah, exactly. It was just so strange. And then every time it was a TV timeout or an injury, that's when it was really like a drop dead pin you could hear in there at that point.
Or a dropped touchdown.
Yeah, it's probably going to be really interesting for you guys calling a game. An away game from the booth. That's
what I think me and Dan might have to make a dry run before that game, because you're right. I mean, I'm just trying to see. They say they're going to have an all 22 camera for us, so we'll see the refs and we'll see the sidelines, which will be different from what you guys will see on TV on the broadcast, but it's still just doing it off a monitor instead of being in the stadium at the game. It's just going to be, I think it's going to be a lot different.
And will you two guys actually be physically together, or will you be at your various locations doing it?
We'll be together. He'll be on one end and he'll have a monitor. I'll be on the other end of the suite and I'll have a monitor. We're going to do everything from Ford Field this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Plenty of parking. Just go right up front.
All right, we're back in 20 seconds. So ML and Lomas, just what you guys did the past 5 seconds, just do it exactly the same coming back.
I don't know if I can remember all that.
You got some stand up in you.
Yeah. People keep knocking me down. That's a problem.
This is the Guy Gordon Show, 760 WJR, where Detroit comes to talk. Here's special guest host, ML Elrick.
Well, I may be the special guest host, but I know you didn't come here for me. You came here for Lomas Brown, who watched a football game the other day where if he hadn't been there with Dan Miller, attendance would have been 0 instead of 2. Lomas, thanks for joining us. I hope you've fully recovered from the latest failure to complete the process. This time, nobody debated whether or not that was a touchdown, but there was no groan in the audience. But what was the reaction? What was the feeling when you see that game wrap up the way it did? And of course, people heard it right here on WJR.
Oh man, it was just heartbreaking. I mean, I fell to my knees. I mean, I thought he had it, and we kind of exploded up in the radio booth because we thought he had it, and when he dropped it, it was just like boom, everything just fell. And me and you were talking a little earlier, it's a good thing 60,000 fans weren't in there, because man, it might have been a nice little booing, not a smattering. It would have been a avalanche of booing that would have went on with what happened for the end of that game. So it was just very disheartening too.
Yeah, I think they would have gotten the locker room in record time if there were 60,000 people who'd been drinking those $20 beers for 4 hours and watched it happen right in front of them. I mean, this wasn't in the middle of the field. This wasn't this is all eyes are on this play. This is heartbreaking. Of course, I listened to the game. But in watching it, was there any question that this was a catchable ball? Was there any, I mean, was the ball released and you said, boy, it's going to take a miracle? Or did you say, here's 6?
It was right there. It was right there. It was right in his chest. He put it right where it had to be at. And, I hate to keep throwing, for us to keep talking about that one play because ML, it shouldn't have got to that point. It's no way it should have got to us needing him to catch that pass or us to win that game. It's no way Chicago should have got back in that game leading by 17 points. But again, it's something that we seen all last year. It just seemed like the same thing. We stop pressuring the quarterbacks or we don't pressure the quarterbacks. But all of a sudden, the quarterbacks get a little air in their chest. They get their confidence level up. And the next thing you know, we're playing from behind or we're playing catch up with these teams that we should have been blowing out. So that's the disheartening thing, has to be for Lion fans and for everybody just watching the game, is the way that the Lions are losing the game is the most disheartening thing.
Yeah, and this is not the first time that someone's dropped a touchdown pass that would have made a difference. We saw it with the University of Michigan, a big comeback last year where one of the receivers, I think it was Ronnie Bell, dropped the ball. And so I'm a Spartan. So I was like, Ronnie Bell, man of the match. You're my favorite Wolverine this week. I'm going to get your jersey, all that stuff. But I was really impressed with how the blue and yellow Skunks surrounded him and really rose up to say, you know what, you're one of our guys. You're one of our go-to guys. If we get a chance, we're going to give you the ball again, and really picked him up. That's a college environment with younger guys, and a lot of people can probably relate to that a little better because their livelihood isn't necessarily on the line with a drop pass. Do you see that Lions locker room surrounding? Was it Swift who dropped it and treating him the same way, or is this one of these things where it's like, send the check to Swifty over there because just don't drop it, okay?
Well, he's a young guy. He's a rookie. And again, think about what they went through. Rookies have gone through this year: COVID, a pandemic, quarantine. You couldn't get with your coaches other than seeing them virtually, just like me and you are getting together right now. So that meant going over plays, going over techniques, and everything has been change. We're creatures of habits, football players are, and when you change our routine, it just throws us off. So this whole thing has been different. So I feel sorry for a young guy, a rookie that's coming into the league in 2020, because he is at such a disadvantage compared to rookies of, even last year. He is at such a disadvantage. So they don't have a choice but to put their arms around Andre Swift and encourage that young man. And to me, I think Coach Bevel, what he'll do is try to get the ball in his hands a lot next week. Try to go to him early in the game to let them know that we still have confidence in you. We still know you're going to be a primetime player for us.
And I think that's a great play, just not as a team thing, as a confidence builder. Because if you made the team, we got to count on you, right? We had other guys who didn't make the team, so we got to see some value in there. But I will say, Ronnie Bell had a hell of a season for Michigan, and he beat the crap out of Michigan State. So if Swift recovers like Ronnie Bell did, we may have an
we'll be
all-pro
all right.
and touches and reps are so important in everything. Yeah. So hopefully a couple more touches and a couple more reps turn into a couple more touchdowns. But these Lions, we've seen due to injuries and circumstance that when things go wrong, it can snowball. Maybe it's Stafford going out. Maybe it's a bad call or a couple of bad calls. And by the way, before we move on from that, I totally agree with you on the calls. To me, a superior team can afford to have a couple of things go against them. It's why I'm not such a huge fan of replay, because if you're really the better team, it's not going to come down to a coin toss somewhere. Right. And that's not a shot at Marty Morningweg, because that one did come down to a coin toss. So get on your Harley and keep riding, Marty, wherever you are. But do you see this team putting this behind it, or maybe is it something where the team says, you know what, we just about dug out of this hole. We can do this, and a bad break is all that's holding us back from being 1-0.
Yeah, I mean, to me, they don't have a choice. Man, you looked at the schedule that's coming up. They travel to Green Bay this week. I can't think of who's next after that. And then they have the New Orleans Saints coming in here before the bye week. So you don't have time to sit around and lick your wounds. You just don't. The NFL, that's the wrong place if you want to sit around and have a pity patty party or people to feel bad for you. It just doesn't happen in the NFL. So you don't have a choice but to keep putting one foot in front of the other foot and to keep moving on. The thing that's alarming is if you putting your same foot in the same spot and you going in the same place, which is nowhere. That's the thing about it. That's the thing when we say we keep putting our foot forward. So do we have to change the direction of where we're walking instead of going north? Do we need to go south? Do we need to go east or west? That's the question that needs to be answered by Coach Patricia and that coaching staff, because they've been going this way now. And this way hadn't been working, right? They've been sticking to the regiment. They've been doing what they had to do. They've been saying the right things. It just hadn't been working right. So now do we go in another direction right now? That's the question that needs to be answered. And they're the only ones that can do it.
We can catch Lomas Brown and Dan Miller, my former colleague at Fox 2, here on WGR 760 for the next game. When the Lions go on the road, Lomas, where are you going to be?
I'm going to be at Ford Field. I'm going to be in this nice suite on the 3rd floor. We got moved down. Most people want to get moved up. Yeah. We got moved down, which is fine because the old fella, I hit that tender age of 57. So the eyes aren't what they used to be. So getting a little lower, they helped the old fella out a little bit yesterday. So I have no complaints. Nice little suite. We have our own bathroom now. So it's no complaints, ML.
Okay, good. Well, I'll tell Dan just to bring some matches just in case, but I know he's a gentleman. So Lomas Brown, former Detroit Lion, one of the greats, is now calling the games for us here on WGR. Hey, Lomas, thanks for taking the time, and we'll look forward to the call next time the Lions take the field.
No problem, ML. Take care.
Okay, take care of yourself. Be safe. Next up, traffic. And next hour, we got some great guests coming here on WGR, the Guy Gordon Show. Can we talk now? Are we safe? Well, hey, Lomas, I do a podcast called ML Soul of Detroit.
Oh, man.
Dan's going to be on tomorrow. And if you ever want to come on, I'd love to love to let people hear what you have to say. Give you a little more room.
Yeah, I would love to come on there, man.
Okay.
Man, you a trip, man.
Well, we're all crazy these days. I just got there first.
You're right, man. You're right about that. But yeah, man, I'm hoping that ML, this thing turns itself around, man. Fast and in a hurry, man. Because like I say, man, nobody feels sorry for you.
Oh, yeah. Well, and in terms of, things being up for grabs, everything's so crazy now. And if the Lions, in the best of times, if they turned it on, they'd own this city. But right now, when every other team is a loser, they're one of the few teams playing. And if they went successful,
you're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah, you're right. They were saying that when I was in the locker room back in the 90s. So you're right about that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, now we need even more to, there's so few things out there for us that we had that. But if they don't, Quinn and Patricia.
Yeah, I know, man.
We're taking the Patriot way on that Massachusetts Pike right out of town.
Man, isn't it just amazing how those assistants on the Belichick, that tree, man, he's shaking them out of that tree, but they don't seem to do nothing once they leave that tree, man. Yeah. What is it? What's going on?
Saban has kind of the same thing, except his guys, some of them do well. They just can't beat him.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you're right.
He just didn't give him that last ingredient in the Colonel's secret recipe. He saves that for old Nick.
Yeah, but man, Bill, he been striking out with his, so we'll see. We'll see what happens.
He brings some of them back, but I mean, I don't know what the hell happened to him in Cleveland. Maybe it's the cheating, but the Belichick that they got in New England is not the Belichick they had on Lake Erie.
You're right. You sure right about that. You're right. Yeah. He must have took something. It must have been a smart pill or something, ML, that he took. So
maybe they put a little extra air in his football. We're not sure. We'll have to see.
You sick, man. All right. Oh, there's your next guest.
Hey, thanks, Lomas. That's my wife.
Oh, that
hey,
is.
Teresa.
Oh.
Trees, say hi to
Hello.
Lomas Brown.
Hi,
How are you?
Good. How you doing?
So
I'm
Lomas,
good. How are you?
when you were playing, we lived in New Hampshire, and she would drive to Massachusetts to see the games at a sports bar in Massachusetts to see your Detroit Lions.
Oh my good! That's a dedicated fan. Wow.
And
No, I
then
got a
another
better
lady
one.
would come over and watch a game with me, but I shouldn't talk about that.
When they would black it out in Detroit, I would drive to Windsor by myself when they blacked it out, and I would watch it. That's how loyal I am. I deserve something.
Yes, man. I'm telling you, it's so many fans like you. That's why we deserve to win, man. It's just so many fans like you. Oh my goodness. That is unbelievable. Wow. I got to make sure I let the Lions know this when I talk to them.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm
Drove to
telling you,
Canada by myself to watch the game.
oh my goodness. That's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah. So your husband is a trip too.
Yeah, don't I know it? I laughed when I heard you say that.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, I definitely got to do the podcast.
Oh
yeah, you gotta do it.
Yeah.
So what's the deal with this house situation, by the way? Amal, are you upstairs? Teresa, you're downstairs, or vice versa?
I'm
Vice
upstairs.
versa.
I'm upstairs.
Were you like in the other room, like waiting backstage before coming on? Or?
I was in the kitchen behind the flag, but I came upstairs.
I was wondering how that was going to go. I don't know if you'd be in the kitchen and Emma would just be like yelling at you and you'd be yelling back to him.
No, I get yelled at.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, lots of yelling.
That's funny, man. All right. Well, you guys have a wonderful show.
Yeah, hey,
man.
thanks, Lomas. Really appreciate the time.
Man. Anytime. Teresa, take care. Nice meeting you too.
Thank you. Me too. Give us a win. We need a win.
Tell me about it. I know that we got the cheese head, so
all right.
It's getting tougher and tougher. But
We'll take any karma we can get.
I'm with you on that. Take care, okay?
Take care. See you, Lomas. Be
Hello.
well.
Bye.
Oh man, I felt so bad for that kid who dropped the pass, though.
Oh, in the end?
Yes.
I know. I want to throw up. In fact, I think I did throw up a little.
Well, I'm kind of agnostic when it comes to sports. I have it on the background, but I don't get riled up. And I said to my wife, I'm like, if you're a diehard fan of this team, like that is the most depressing, most depressing thing that could happen.
Yeah. No, I know. And just every year when I say I'm giving up, I'm not watching this year, they suck me back in.
Well, it was weird because I turned it on in the third quarter and they looked great coming out of the gate, and then at 10:35 they had that bad a drive, and then they punted it to the Bears, and the Bears had that bad drive. I said, okay, well, not today, that's going to happen, and so I probably put that out into the universe.
You jinxed them.
Yeah,
I'm going to blame you.
It was my fault.
It is.
Yeah,
I'm actually wearing my Lions colors right now, kind of.
Good for you. Well, it's. I know that we've all been hurt before, but it's only one game. It's only one game.
Today's Free Press has a story about why not to lose hope. We have the same story every year, but
what do they call that in journalism? The future file?
Yeah, the tickler.
Yeah.
The tickler.
Yeah. All right, your traffic is 13 ml, and I kind of left you out hanging. I was playing the music. I'm like, why isn't ML going to break? I'm like, oh, because he can't hear the studio because I don't have this up. So that was my bad.
I thought I'd get a little music. And plus, the other things, I'm looking at the clock on my Mac, and I have the minutes. I don't have the seconds. So actually, I should probably.
Yeah.
I wonder if I can switch that.
Yeah, I was giving you the music. However, I didn't have the station audio piped into you, so there'd be no way for you to hear it.
Oh, okay. Oh, display the time with seconds. Let me try that. Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry. That's an easy fix. So I should be able to hit those a little. Better.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good to have a contingency plan in case I mess up, which is very likely.
Well, the problem now is, if instead of just cutting me off, I can't tell if I'm getting cut off or not. Right. I mean, I sort of feel like I'm a little bit floating.
You're doing fine.
I forgot we had Lomas at 3:40. So when Lomas was up, I was like, "Oh, hey, Lomas, good to see you." Just hanging around till 4:00. But that's Patricia at 4:00. I'm like, "Oh yeah,
yeah, 4:15 ish."
Yeah. Teresa, do you have that light on upstairs?
Above me, yes. Is
Okay.
it bad? Should I turn it
No,
off?
I was thinking the one on your face.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
You want me to turn it off?
No, I think it's fine. I just didn't know.
Here,
Yeah, I
we're
do.
back in 10 here.
I closed the curtain.
Okay. You got the Catrice lipstick on.
This is the Guy Gordon Show on News Talk 760 WJR. Here's special guest host, ML Elrick.
Folks, thanks for joining me here on the Guy Gordon Show. I am ML Elrick of the Detroit Free Press, filling in this week, or at least through Wednesday, or I don't know. I guess we'll get some notes afterwards. Maybe this is my only time. I'll try not to mess it up. But if you missed the first hour, we had some great guests. Peter Badia, editor of the Detroit Free Press, talking about anonymous sources. And we just got off the line with Lomas Brown, fantastic expert on all things Lions. We're going to hear from head coach Matt Patricia later this hour. But right now we're joined by someone who I know very well from the many years we've worked together at the Detroit Free Press. We've collaborated on some stories, and somewhere along the line on our own time, so I don't want the bosses to get upset, we put together a couple of good kids. This is my wife, Teresa Baldus of the Detroit Free Press, who's not here because she's my wife. This is not a nepotism gig. She is here because she just wrote a first-person story about the struggles that she has had trying to get unemployment from the state of Michigan. And when I say that this is a problem that a lot of us can relate to, I mean 100,000 people in Michigan have gone through the same thing that Teresa is dealing with. Teresa, thanks for joining us from upstairs. Tell us a little bit about your story and how people can try and get this thing squared away.
It started off with just me dealing with my own personal nightmare. Back in May, I tried to apply for unemployment. We were furloughed at the Free Press, so it wasn't a do or die situation, but I applied for unemployment only to discover that someone had stolen my identity 3 years ago, and I couldn't file for unemployment until I filed an identity theft claim and a fraud investigation were to get underway. So I did all that. It's been 4 months and I've heard from nobody. I don't know if my claim was ever even received. I can't get through to anyone. I've called, I've emailed, I've done everything. So I said to the bosses, I wonder if I'm the only one. And more than that is, I've been working during the pandemic, and I thought, what would I have done if this were my only source of income and I couldn't get unemployment? So I set out to write a personal point of view, a column about this, and only to do a little digging and research and to find out that since the pandemic started, 110,000 people have filed identity theft claims through the unemployment office during this pandemic. How many of them can't get unemployment now? They haven't broken down the numbers for me. But after I wrote the story, I've been flooded with emails from people in my exact same shoes, only worse. And the stories I'm hearing are heartbreaking. It's awful.
So we should be clear. I also have not been able to get my unemployment yet from the state of Michigan when I went on furlough. We have not called the state of Michigan. Oh, excuse me. Hey, it's the state of Michigan calling back. I think the money's coming, honey. But we have not called the state of Michigan to try and get help in our case. And in fact, when we talk to the state of Michigan, we tell them, do not help us. We're not calling for a special privilege, but we are like everybody else in Michigan. We're subject to job fluctuations. We're subject to the bureaucracy and the problems with it. And so these stories we tell because we think we've had an experience like our friends and neighbors, and even like people who don't particularly like us. And we're hoping that this will bring some attention to what's wrong with the state, that maybe someone will fix it. And in the case of Teresa, when you subscribe to the Free Press or you read a story in the Free Press, you will find contact information at the end of those stories, a phone number you can call, an email address you can contact. And what's happening now is people who have been in a similar position to Teresa are contacting her and telling her their stories. And those are stories that I anticipate we'll be telling in the Free Press very soon. Am I right about that? And because I'm running the show, you have to say I'm right. Normally it doesn't work that way in this house.
You're right. You're 100% right.
Oh, I'd say that again, one more time.
ML Elrick is 100% right.
Okay, we're done, guys. It's been a great show. Thanks for tuning in.
But let me go back to the stay here. I don't know how much time I have, but in the
after that, you can take your time.
Anyway, in the state's defense, And I reached out to folks at the Michigan Unemployment Insurance Agency. They're dealing with an unprecedented crisis themselves. Since March 15th until now, they've received more claims for unemployment, or just as many as they have in the last 6 years combined. It's like 2.6 million people have filed for unemployment. And then throw in all the fraud. Okay, so out of the 2.6 million, you have, is it 110,000 people doing it fraudulently? In my case, it was done in 2017, and it was never flagged. They're busy. They've hired 600 investigators just to go through these fraudulent claims. But my bigger question is, why can't you, how hard is it to respond with an email that says, we got your claim, we're looking into it? I didn't even get that, and neither have any of the people I've talked to. They've called their senators, they've called their state representatives. People are very, very upset. There's a mom out there with 3 kids. She has no money. Her husband lost her job. I've often wondered how many people are out there actually starving when you hear people are losing their jobs. They can't feed their kids. They can't pay their bills. Well, I'm now meeting people like that, and the state has got to figure something out. So my next story will hopefully offer some answers, some solutions. Right now, what it did more than anything is it spotlighted a much bigger problem than I realized was out there.
So again, Teresa didn't do this story, and good reporters don't do stories that will help them personally, but it's because we're members of the community. And because, first of all, when we call the state, they tend to answer us, whereas they might not be able to get back to you. So the purpose of doing this story is to get some answers from the state that will help other people. And certainly the flood of cases, no one anticipated that. There's no way any government, no matter how well run, could absorb that just tidal wave of claims. So the purpose of the story is not to shame the state, but it is to say this is a problem out there and to try and identify solutions, because while Teresa and I have been fortunate that we're able to pay our bills, there are many, many among those 110,000 people who are losing their domicile, who may not be able to pay their grocery bills. And, I encourage everybody to subscribe to the Detroit Free Press, but I'm not sure they got the $3 to subscribe to the Free Press when they're not getting their unemployment claims. So this is one of those situations where people at the Detroit Free Press and today people on WJR are trying to highlight situations and problems to bring about a solution so that those of you out there listening, as well as us, can get on with our lives as best we can. Teresa, when can people expect to see your next story, and what advice do you have in the few seconds we have left besides hang on for those people who have not gotten their unemployment checks?
Right. Obviously the hang on, my story should be coming. I'm hoping within a week. Continue to call that fraud line that's there. And if not, call the director himself. He was quoted in my story. His name is Jason Moon. Call him. I mean, he is there to represent that whole office. Flood him with calls. As an individual, when I reached out through the regular, and I've had no special perks, nothing was done for me. I'm in the same boat as everybody else. So I want to see what the process looks like. And so I'm sticking through it just like the rest of you are. Finally, I went through the communications department for the unemployment office, and they answered, but it was because I was calling as a reporter, and that's frustrating. So I urge all of you, flood that office with calls.
So if you want to let Teresa know what you're experiencing, you can contact her at tbaldas, that's TBALDAS at freepress.com. Share your stories with her. She's shared her story with people who subscribe to the Free Press. You can find it at freep.com. Teresa, thanks for joining us, and thanks for letting me get the last word in for once. She's not even going to say thank. Good. So I did get the last word in. That's awesome. This has been a great day. Thanks for having me. I knew she was going to do that. Okay. Anyways, here's traffic.
The major accident working out in Fraser, Groesbeck Highway at Utica Road has indeed been cleared. You will find a delay, though, still thinning out in the area. There's road construction working on Grand River in both directions between Novi Road and Taft Road. Also, construction is affecting traffic on Novi Road in both directions over I-96. so you may find a small delay there. I'm Pete Spivak, WJR, traffic and weather first.
Loads of sunshine, comfortable low humidity, and some crisp nighttime low temps. Like tonight, we're talking some upper 40s here in Detroit and even some 30s up across the UP. Some parts of Michigan flirting with record cold tonight. 67 our high today, 48 tonight in town. Sunshine Tuesday, 72, and upper 70s Wednesday with sunshine. I'm meteorologist Scott Laurie. More on News Talk 760 WJR.
All right, we are on Patricia Watch. Yeah, I can hear it okay. All right, we are officially on Matt Patricia Watch, so
We'll take some calls then.
yeah.
I'm going to go through and reorder them right now. I'll put a line like I did beforehand so you can know who's there.
Okay.
We've gotten a bunch and they've changed and whatnot. And right now we're trying to figure out what's going on because Matt Patricia was supposed to be at 4:15, but we've got players up right now.
Okay.
So when he's up, we'll let you know.
Yeah, and it's possible in the middle of this commercial break, I may just slam it down and have you throw it to a dry, but we'll see. Right now, our executive producer is monitoring, and so is Laura. So when we see the whites of Patricia's eyes, we'll go to him.
Okay. So I would just say, let's go to Steve in Plymouth if we have time for a call before we have to jump out to what is it, Allen Park now? Is that where they're at? Okay. Unless you want me to just tap dance because we don't want to cut somebody off.
Whatever you'd like, honestly. I mean, if you've got some stuff you want to talk about, the thing is, it could be 10 minutes. It could be.
Yeah. Let's go to Steve. And if we have to cut Steve off, I'll just say, hey, Steve, thanks for calling. You're a baller. Beat it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, if you're in the middle of a call, either Laura or I will just break in on the air and let you know since this is our talk back anyway. So. Yeah, kind of what we do with pressers is we never know what's going to be on time, so we just kind of go on with our lives and then act like it's a surprise when it happens. Let's see, I have a couple comments here. The EP, Nick Roddy. Right there.
He's the EP of the Lions.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's fun. That was fun having Teresa on. You two.
Yeah, she got all gussied up. That's not what she looked like an hour ago.
Well, it's video, man.
I know.
You think I wake up like this?
Yeah, but you always have a sparkle. There's a natural effervescence there. That's you don't need to mess around with that.
Yeah, I think there's just something on my camera.
I thought that was medicinal marijuana. I wasn't sure.
Mine are yours.
I know Link is always looking for some new sponsors. So.
Yeah, I'll do some live reads. Hi, friends. This is Mike Parsons. You hear me talk about medical marijuana for a while now.
Okay. Could you hear that phone ringing in the background here? Okay.
Well, yeah, I thought that was something you set up.
Yeah, that was a bit. That was a bit we're doing.
It's the joys of working from home.
Yeah, I know. Well, and if your home phone's ringing, it's not important. It's CVS or it's a pollster or it's a fraudster or whatever.
Or it's credit cards.
Yeah, exactly.
Car warranties.
Yeah.
No. Social Security.
Publishers Clearinghouse.
Yeah, I'd love to see a Frank or hear a Frank grow house ad. I saw him at a golf course a couple months ago and his hair was kind of long. He looked almost sort of like he was getting hippied out.
We're back here in 5 seconds. I'm out. Okay. If Patricia isn't there, we'll go to 28 as our out. Okay.
Okay.
On News Talk 760 WJR, here's special guest host ML Elrick.
Well, it looks like my wife is going to let me get a word in edgewise. So thank you for joining us here on the Guy Gordon Show. I'm ML Elrick, investigative reporter at the Detroit Free Press. We will be joined very shortly by Lions head coach Matt Patricia. We're going to break away to join that as it happens. But in the meantime, we're going to take your calls. If we have to jump in the middle of a call to go out to Allen Park, I'm going to apologize in advance. But while we've got the time, let's turn these phone lines over to you. And we're going to start off with my man, Jeffrey in Livonia. What's going on, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm a Bible-believing Christian, and I have something to say about Donald Trump and about the confirmation.
Hey, Jeffrey,
of,
before you do that, are there Christians who don't believe in the Bible?
Are there Christians that don't believe in the Bible?
I just want to make sure.
They're not a Christian. Then they're not. If they don't believe in the Bible, then they're not a Christian.
Okay,
but
that's what I thought.
Here's what I see. That story about the Atlantic, that's been debunked.
By whom?
Donald Trump has restored religious liberty to the.
Jeffrey, hold on a second. I'm going to let you make every point you want to make, but I want you to back them all up because facts matter. Who debunked the story in the Atlantic?
Who? The editor of the Atlantic.
I don't know. I'm not that smart.
The editor of the Atlantic was talking about that. And here you look at the actions of Donald Trump.
When was that? Where was that? Where can I find that? Because I heard they were. I heard they were corrections.
That was on. That was a excerpt from Rush Limbaugh on WJR from 9 to 12. Now.
I'm gonna have to look for that one. But go ahead. Sorry. Next point. I appreciate you providing.
The next point is. During the Obama administration, chaplains were not able to talk to military people who were hurt. That was a policy in the Obama administration. Donald Trump has gotten rid of that policy.
Excuse me, where did you see that? Because I've never heard that before.
Yep. It's a story.
Where did you see that, Jeffrey?
It's a story on. It was a story on the Christian Broadcasting Network. So he's restored that, and
I've never heard that before. But
okay, well
let's go to point 3.
Okay. Also, he's restored relations with Israel. So those actions demonstrate someone that is concerned about the military. So those stories that we're talking about.
When did relations between the United States and Israel end? I'm not aware of that.
Israel? Well,
what was there to restore? We've always had great relationships with Israel.
During the Obama administration, there was a sanction by the UN on the BDS. That's been eliminated. Donald Trump has done good things for this country.
Jeffrey, what's BDS?
BDS was the movement to defund Israel, and the United Nations.
What does BDS stand for? Because to me, it means big damn sandwich, and I'm getting kind of hungry, but it may mean something else.
You're an investigative reporter, and you don't know what the BDS movement was?
I'm not the one making the phone call with all the facts. I'm just asking you to back it up. I'll just tell you something right now, Jeffrey. When I have something to say, I have facts behind it. So I'm just asking you to do the same thing. I'm just merely asked, what does BDS stand for?
BDS was to defund the businesses in Israel, and that was done by the Palestinians, and there was a sanction in the United Nations under the Obama administration, and Donald Trump got rid of that. So he's had a treaty with the UAE. He's had a treaty with Bahrain.
We reported that today, as a matter of fact.
Does that sound like someone that would say those things about the military? I don't think so. Those are people who lie.
Hey, Jeffrey, what about? I'm sorry to interrupt you. What about his comments about Senator McCain not being a hero because he was captured and spent 5 years in Hanoi Hilton?
Senator McCain?
Yes, sir.
So, about Senator McCain? Well, I don't like Senator McCain that much either, actually.
But sir, what about the president's comments about Senator McCain and presumably other people who served this country and sacrificed a portion of their lives as prisoners of war? What do you make of those comments?
Well, you have to look at the actions of what Donald Trump has done. Has he restored the military? Has he put funding into the military?
I'm asking you a very focused question, and if you can't respond, I'm going to have to take some more calls from Earth.
Okay. Now I know your family. You're both employed by the Free Press. Okay. Here's what's going to happen.
I used to be employed by Fox News, sir. Sir, I used to be employed by Fox News.
Okay. Well, why are you with the Free Press then?
Because the station sold me out to an advertiser. That's one reason.
Okay, here's what's going to happen. Anyone that helps
Here's what's going to happen. We're going to take a call from Michael in Ann Arbor. I appreciate your time, sir. Michael, you're calling back with some information on Lieutenant Colonel Vindman. I appreciate you following up with us. What do you got, my man?
Well, first off, your comment about McCain, it was an opinion that Trump gave you. Second of all, I was on hold when you made the comment about me.
What was that?
About the information about Vindman.
So you got it. Let's
testified
go, brother. We're
during
going to
the
get Matt Patricia
testimony.
here.
During
Michael,
the testimony,
yes.
he admitted that what he was testifying was his opinion. He had no facts behind it. You also had a call on Bloomberg.
That's not it.
Yes, it is, because I watched it.
I listened to it.
He did say that he was not going to investigate the Democrat side. So for an investigative reporter, you really don't do your research. And if you work for Fox, you would know that that was part of the Fox coverage was the Vindman testimony.
Hey, Michael, I'm just going to break in. I'm an investigative reporter in Detroit. I can't investigate every story in the world, and if I tried, I would fail. But you know what? Ron also called from Ann Arbor, and he said he found the information about Bloomberg. So we're going to go to him because what you told us about Vindman isn't accurate. So, Mike, your time's up. We're going to Ron. Ron, my man in Washtenaw County, what's the good word about Mikey Bloomberg? Mini Mike, as the president calls him.
Home and I Googled it, and if you just Google it yourself, Bloomberg investigating Democrats, you'll see where he came up in December of 19, and he told his reporters that with your paycheck comes restrictions.
And
hey, ML, and I apologize, Ron, but Matt Patricia is now speaking at his press conference.
Thanks, Ron. Matt wins. Sorry to cut you off.
Smaller to be able to go through the tape by position coaches, which is good. We got a lot of corrections to make from yesterday's game and a lot of things to go over, but certainly was different from that standpoint. I always like to get everybody in person on Monday as a big group and make sure we kind of reset as we go forward, especially coming off a tough day yesterday. So all part of the changes of what this year is right now and what, we're all adapting to, trying to, just trying to get going here as we get rolling through the season. So I'd say with that, I think the guys are, they understand we had obviously a great opportunity yesterday, but really there's a lot of plays in the game early on in the first three quarters where we needed to do a better job. We did a great job, I thought, with the halftime swing. I think that's where really we kind of got a jump up there a little bit, but really didn't really settle the game and kind of get it under control and then obviously finish as we got towards the end. But it's really all three phases. I mean, there's plays in all three phases where I think that we obviously could have changed the outcome, and that's where we got to get better. I think a lot of the guys on the team, one of the things too is that some of the guys that were on that field yesterday have either never played for the Detroit Lions, were rookies, or haven't played football in a long time. Even the guys that were out there that were injured at the end of last year hadn't played in even longer. So I think from that standpoint, it was first game for everybody trying to get things right. We obviously got to do a better job there. Certainly was different playing in our stadium with no fans. That was unique, I would say, from that aspect of it. So we definitely missed the fans there too. But, we got a lot of work to do. We got a long season and, we got to get going to really Green Bay in front of us and another division game. So it's important that we learn from today, we get going and, put the page and get ready here and have another good week of practice. So it's kind of where we're at right now.
All right, Larry.
Hi, Matt. When you did a self-scout after last season with, the blown leads, and then you do it yesterday as a team, what can you do as a coach to help this team finish better?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's a lot of plays. I would say we focused on a lot of the plays that happened in the first three quarters. I think, we understand the plays that happened at the end of the game. That we've got to do a better job of. But the first three quarters, we certainly could have put ourselves in better position to not leave that door open at the end, even if it's cracked just a little bit in the NFL. We certainly understand the things that turn a game, especially late in the game. And statistically, all that stuff shows up again. So I think from us from yesterday, we know that, we got to make some plays. In one of the phases or all three phases, we've got to be able to execute and make sure that, we capitalize on the opportunities that we have to make those plays. So keep putting the guys in those situations, trying to get everybody on the same page as much as possible with the new pieces that we have in place and the new players that are out there on the field so that, we are all kind of moving as one. That's important for all of us. And certainly, we just got to keep fighting to get better. That's really it. And you don't want to be in those situations at the end of the game. You really want to make sure you try to do everything possible before that to handle that, so that you're not in those situations.
How do you have your players avoid, the here we go again mentality, the ones that were on the team last year? It's easy for a coach or maybe a vet to say it's a new year, but the guys who lived that last year, how do you get that thought out of their head?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that, for us, obviously last year is last year, and there's some definitely pieces that are different than where we were last year from that aspect of it. So we make sure that we're focusing on the guys that are here now. I think there's a lot of guys here that are in key roles that were not part of last year's team, so they certainly don't have that mentality at all. And, for us, we got to actually make sure it doesn't creep in. Sometimes maybe you hear it too much from the outside world, then you start to think, is that the case? But it's not the case for us inside. So right now for us, we got to make sure we just understand it was week 1 and we got to improve week 2.
Kyle?
Afternoon, Coach. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
DeAndre Swift looks like a guy who's going to make a lot of plays for you, right? We've seen it on the practice field. Didn't make the play at the end of the game there. What were you telling him when you guys went up the tunnel together, when you put your arm around him? And have you checked in with him today? How do you, handle a rookie, get him over a moment like that and ready for the Packers in 6 days?
Yeah, I mean, I think from that aspect, he's a great kid. Obviously, I know in this virtual world, you guys haven't had a lot of chance to spend time around him in person, but he's a great kid. And I honestly, I think when we were walking up the tunnel, I just kind of grabbed him, put my arm around him, because I knew that he was going to put too much of this on him when it's not him. It's not him at all. We had a lot of opportunities to win that game. It's not about him at all. It's about the other plays that happened. And he's going to make a lot of plays for this team. He's going to be a great player for this team. And everybody goes through growing pains from that aspect of it. And I just want him to know that, he's a great player. He's a great guy. He's going to come to work. He's going to keep pushing forward. And to think that we didn't win the game because of his play is totally inaccurate. Obviously, it's just one of many plays from that aspect of it. And, we can't do that to a really good young player. And I think if anybody tries to do that to a really good young player, then, you run the risk of that guy actually believing that. And that's not the case. He's a great young player, and we should all support him, and we should all be behind him. And, the great thing about that room is, especially with Adrian coming in and carry on his leadership and all the guys that are in there, I think they know that too. And everybody on the team. Honestly, it was, he's because he's a young guy and he was in that situation. I think he's going to put more on his shoulders, and that's just the way that he is. He's going to take that and say, I should have done this, but honestly, we should have done a lot more as a team. He shouldn't even been in that position. So he'll be great. He's a great kid. He's a good young player, and we'll just get him back out there. Everyone believes in him. We all believe in each other, so we'll be all right. Yep.
Good afternoon, Coach.
How we doing?
Jamie Collins got ejected yesterday. Just wanted to hear your reaction to that, and if you thought that it was justified. I looked on the replay like he was trying to explain himself. Just if you could share some insight to what happened there. You spoke to him.
Yep, I've spoken to him at length and spoken to the team, and look, I think the bottom line is, there's rules in place for a reason, and it's to protect everybody that's out on the field, including the officials, and everybody knows that. Whether it's an honest mistake or not, you just can't do that, and that's the bottom line. But he understands that. He knows that. He just, like you said, was trying to demonstrate more so than do anything aggressive. It was more of just hey, this is what's going on, and unfortunately got too close. So it's not okay. We know that, and we can't afford to lose a great player at the beginning of the game. And it's a hard lesson for everybody to learn, but it's another reminder of those situations. And certainly, our first game with officials, it's a good check for everybody to understand. You can't touch an official. Just it is what it is.
And on the game, I know you're conditioned. You've coached a long time. Just turn the page and move forward to week 2. But yesterday, the way you guys lost, was it maybe a little bit more difficult for a loss like that to turn the page for you and get over it and move on so fast?
Yeah, I think we're still on Monday, so I'm still working through the game from that aspect of it. Certainly, by tonight and by tomorrow morning, we'll definitely flip the page. There's a lot of learning in this game. There's a lot of teaching. There's a lot of situations that we've got to make sure we get corrected. This isn't we don't have the luxury of the 4 preseason games to kind of teach some of this stuff right now. And you try to do the best you can within the, whatever it was, 14 padded days of practice that we had, but certainly live in-game action. we're coaching, we're teaching, and we're learning on the fly, and we got to do a better job so that we can turn those into W's and not L's, because they still count right now. So there was a lot of teaching that had to go on today, and understanding that it is week 1, and there's going to be some bad football here through September. We know that, but the quicker we can improve and get better through the course of this month, and the better we'll be as we kind of hit those next stretches. So hopefully we can learn from today. I know the guys are, they did a great job with the meetings. They were, really on top of it. Most of them with today's technology, they've already probably self-corrected harder than we're going to by the time they come in here in the morning. So from that aspect of it, it was good just kind of to reemphasize those points of what we need to get better at.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Coach, to the injury situation, no excuses, but when you get injuries to one position group, like you had with the secondary, and if you include Akuda in there, how difficult is that? In the same vein, you look around the league, hamstring seems to be the injury du jour, soft tissue. How much of that is because of you guys had very little OTAs, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. It's no excuses, like you said. We don't use that as an excuse at all. I certainly do, though, know that within a game, and this is just game management sort of information that we look at, when you lose 2 guys in one position, we know how thin you are roster depth-wise, and we do understand that there's going to be a lot of adjusting and adapting and things that we're going to have to do. So, that was hard yesterday, but Tony McRae did a great job, I thought, of stepping in and competing. He gave us everything he had. He was making plays on special teams, and so everybody knows they got to be ready to go, whenever that happens. I think for us, we are taking a hard look at the hamstrings and the soft tissue injuries right now. Some of it for us too is maybe we mentioned last week, I'm trying to coordinate with, some of the strength training that we're doing along with practicing and kind of the muscle groups that we're using and based on what days, because I think you're right. I think throughout the entire league, everyone is looking at the same thing going, okay, we had a condensed preseason. We didn't have an off season. We're trying to get these guys on what we call max high efforts, and what that looks like and when the injuries are occurring. And, can we do something to try to build them up and keep making sure that we're, building on top of that so that when we get to the game and those really open up, that we don't have these injuries in the game itself, So I think it's a league-wide thing that everyone's looking at. It's really groins and hamstrings. I would say those are the 2 areas. And then after that would be calves. Those are it's that posterior chain that goes down through the back of your leg that right now we're looking at from the stress on those.
All right, that was Matt Patricia with his post-game press conference. Back to ML here. We'll take a few more calls.
Yeah, I want to apologize that we had to cut Ron off in Ann Arbor so we could join that press conference. I have used the time, however, to do a little research using some of the information that Ron gave us. And here's the story as reported by Fox News. It's that Michael Bloomberg, when he was running for president, said that his own news organization, Bloomberg News, would not investigate Michael Bloomberg. It would continue to investigate Donald Trump as appropriate. I didn't see anything about them not investigating other Democratic candidates, but certainly Michael Bloomberg said, I'm the boss, don't investigate me. For what it's worth, I think that's a terrible policy. When you are the boss, you have to be subject to the same scrutiny as anybody else. But as far as I can tell, that's the real story. That's what Ron was referring to. Ron, I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. And for what it's worth, in a retaliatory move, Donald Trump pulled the credentials for all the Bloomberg news reporters who were covering the White House. So we seems like we had a couple of people in the sandbox who were not acting as adult as we would like from our billionaire would-be most powerful people in the world. Anyways, that's the story. Ron, I want to thank you for bringing that to our attention. And I just want you to know that facts matter. We are going to try and stick to facts as closely as we can because we think you deserve nothing less. And waiting on the line patiently has been Mike in Clinton Township. Mike, thank you for hanging on. Thanks for joining us here on the Guy Gordon Show.
Well, I hope you're having a great time there today. No, I love you, even though you're a green and white Democrat. But
I'm green and white. I know enough about both parties not to affiliate myself with either party.
Well, I love your reporting. But anyways, what I want to talk about is unemployment, like your wife was talking. Listen to your wife more. Unemployment's been bad forever. in 1974, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I was eligible for unemployment. And I remember waiting in these big long lines around the old converted supermarket in Mont Clemens for hours. That was before computers. It's always been bad. And I think what it is state employees don't have the technical skills and the resources to do that job. You know, Amazon can deliver a package to a Sherpa halfway up on Mount Everest in 2 days, and we can't give your wife or you a check. Think about that.
It is very frustrating. And let's not forget, the Unemployment Insurance Agency also had some problems a few years ago where they were claiming that people were making fraudulent claims when they were not making fraudulent claims, and people were losing their homes over that. So there's been some problems, and they blamed it on the computer system then. But certainly the problems at the Unemployment Insurance Agency predate the pandemic, but they have not been able to keep up with the number of claims coming since the world basically started spinning a lot faster. But Mike, really appreciate your points and really appreciate your service as a member of the Marine Corps. Semper Fi, Mike, in Clinton Township. Thank you very much. We did have a call from Ike in West Bloomfield, who was going to tell me what BDS stands for. I suspect it's not Big Damn Sandwich, although that still sounds good to me. But we have lost Ike, so I'm sorry we couldn't keep you on there. George in Detroit, we have just a minute or so. You have a question about Biden's son getting involved. Hit me with that one, George. What do you got? Because I'm not here to defend Joe Biden. I'm just here to try and get to the truth.
Right. Well, okay. The truth is, should Hunter Biden ever been appointed to that board of Burisma Holdings when he had no knowledge even of the language of Ukrainian, and had no knowledge of the gas and oil business, and made all kinds of money, and then Joe Biden bragged about it. He got the top prosecutor fired and bribing them with, you'll get the $1 billion if you fire him. If you don't, in 6 hours, I'll be out of here. Was that a quid pro Joe or a quid pro quo or what? What do you think?
So George, we got to go to traffic in just a minute. Let me give you the easy answer first. It was absolutely inappropriate and extremely troubling, because if it wasn't a genuine conflict of interest, it certainly had the appearance of a conflict of interest when Hunter Biden took that job on the board of the natural resources or the oil company in the Ukraine. That is something that the Obama administration and Mr. Biden's staff should have identified and said, there's no way we're going to let that happen. That was a terrible situation. Never should have happened. But I do want to point out one thing. Joe Biden did threaten the Ukraine to get that prosecutor moving, but all the powers in Western Europe also issued the same threat. That was not to get his son a job. It was to try and get Ukraine to root out corruption. But again, let me take the easy one. Let me leave with the easy one. Hunter Biden, what a bum. I think Beau Biden was the better son, but I'll leave it at that. We are going to try and see if we can get you home wherever you're going a little easier with WJR traffic right here live on the Guy Gordon Show.
You'll find construction affecting traffic along I-75 in both directions between Clay Street and I-94. Also, that project working is partially blocking the southbound I-75 exit ramp to I-94, so that may cause a slight delay. You'll find road construction with delays along Rochester Road in both directions between Avon Road and 2nd Street and Rochester Hills. And there's road construction working on Middle Belt in both directions between Michigan Avenue and Cherry Hill Road. I'm Pete Spivak, WGR, traffic and weather first.
Well, the Gulf Coast and the Atlantic battling tropical. The weather patterns looking.
Oh, we got the phone ringing in here now. I don't know if you saw, but Ike is back.
Yeah, let's go to Ike when he comes back.
Okay.
Sunshine 72 tomorrow and upper 70s with sunshine Wednesday.
And do we have another break before the end of the show, or
No, segment.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's going to be a shorter segment just because to catch up on the spots we didn't play during
Patricia?
Yeah.
Sure.
So our out will be 54:20, and I will remember to bring the station up so you can hear it, so you can hear the minute of music leading up.
Oh, great. So I get to quit 5 minutes early. This isn't like the Frank 50 seconds and you're done show.
No, no,
like
the clock and everything has changed around a bit.
That's all right.
Yeah, so don't get used to it though. Normally we are out later, but
okay.
Yeah. Patrick on Facebook has a guess of what BDS means. However, I'm not putting it up on on the Facebook.
It took me a while to come up with sandwich. I wasn't sure what the S was for, but
Yeah. Well, hopefully Ike will shed some light on that.
I have no doubt the font of wisdom that is Ike will be flowing richly.
Oh, I got to get his name up here.
It was good. We had people who bailed, did some homework, and came back with answers. I like that. They're willing to work. That's good.
Well, just you challenge them.
That's all right.
Yeah.
These are challenging times. Everybody's getting too damn comfortable just sitting in their silo. It's time for everybody to.
Right. And look, Denise wasn't a fan, but you can't win them all over.
She's one of many haters, I have no doubt. But the good news is when Guy comes back, he'll be welcomed as a hero. This is all about.
You're softening it up for Guy. You're making a more pleasant return from Guy.
If you want to look taller, stand next to short people, and I'm a dwarf, so we're good.
Well, it's tough coming back from vacation. So if you can come back to especially 2 weeks. So if you can come back to a hero's welcome, then I guess that's really it's an act of charity on your part.
I am known as a big squishy liberal demitard or whatever, but
I think it's libtard. That's the term I see all over the place.
You know what I love is I've taken out more Democrats than Republicans, but once you say something bad about a Republican, you're forever in the Democrat column. I'm like, listen, there's rats all over this house, and I'm just shooting rats. So I don't look to see whether they're red or green or blue or okay, maybe I try not to shoot the green ones, but blue or red, whatever, it doesn't make any difference to me.
Well, it's funny, Laura and I, we've seen it with Guy. The people on the far right think he's a lib. The people on the far left thinks he's a raging conservative, and I guess that's what happens when you. Well, I wouldn't call him a moderate, but he's a center. He's a center Republican.
He is the classic Republican. I mean, Guy Gordon is the definition of the Republican Party as of about maybe even 4 years ago. I mean, that's how much things have changed.
Pre-2016.
Yeah.
So we're back in about a minute. Yeah, it'll be a little bit shorter of a segment.
Okay.
Clay has us up on his 65-inch TV. That still still sounds terrifying to me, but thank you, Clay.
Yeah, just don't put it on the vivid setting, Clay. It looked like we're coming at you.
Or that one that makes everything look like a British soap opera.
Oh, man.
That's the first thing I do when I get a new TV. I spend an hour trying to figure out how to get it off that setting.
Yeah, you don't want no Coronation Street over there at Casa de Parsons.
No Neighbors, Neighbours.
Or Emmerdale. I feel like I have a 65-inch forehead, but I'm that hairline used to be a lot closer to the eyebrows, but that's what happened.
We'll find a sponsored graphic for that. Okay, we're back here.
Okay.
Have been breaking while you've been at work. 760 WJR, where Detroit comes to talk. Here's special guest host, ML Elrick.
Hey, it's ML Elrick of the Detroit Free Press here with you, filling in for Guy Gordon this week on the Guy Gordon Show. And we are very pleased that Ike has rejoined us to tell us what I thought it was BDS, but Ike, what does this stand for? Because I'm not familiar with this term.
Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions. It was a Palestinian movement that started to hurt Israel's economy and economically try to destroy them. And unfortunately, it's been taken in a different direction than I am sure that the Palestinians didn't want to go. It was intended not to buy stuff that was originated in Israel. And what's sad is there are so many Palestinians that put their lives on the line to get into Israel so they would have work. And then, unfortunately, Israel and America face the same dilemma. In trying to do good, it's misinterpreted and end up looking like they're vultures or trying to create havoc for other people. Paul Harvey, the great communicator, had a phenomenal line about America that's very appropriate for Israel as well. Says America can be looked upon as a loving sheepdog that goes into an antique store, and every time it wags its tail, it knocks over something. That's what Israel and America are facing. We're not perfect. No one is perfect. But we're as close in this country as we can get. There's no one that's ever been perfect. And it's so sad for us to try to destroy this wonderful country that we live in. I can't express myself any more clearly, but when you try the old line that you bite the hand that feeds you, unfortunately, that is something that I'm not smart enough to explain more appropriately. But I appreciate the time.
I think you've done a wonderful job, Ike in West Bloomfield with BDS. Thank you very much for your tenacity and getting that to us. I appreciate you explaining that to us, and I do think that you said something we should all keep in mind, that nobody's perfect, and we all need to do our best. So Ike, thank you very much for listening and for giving us a call. We're going to go to Doug in Lansing. Doug, how are you doing today? Hey, Doug, when I said you're on the phone, are you standing on it or are you ready to talk? What do we got going out there in fine Ingham County? I'm thinking Doug has a bad connection. Doug, why don't you give us a call back at 5:30? I'll be enjoying a beer and you can have a dial tone. But thanks for giving us a try. We appreciate you trying to reach us here at 1-800-859-0957. We have just about a minute left here on the Guy Gordon Show. I'm ML Elrick of the Detroit Free Press filling in. We'd love to get some last words of wisdom before we go. It looks like Daniel, you're going to take us out today. What's up, Dan the man? Let's have it from Flint.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, sir. There's only one Daniel from Flint on the line. I
Okay.
think.
Well, no, I'm in Trenton. She must have.
Oh, you're in Trenton.
No
Okay.
problem. No. Yeah,
Hey,
thanks for taking my call.
Downriver,
I wanted to tell
beautiful
you,
too, man.
Yeah, we like it. Mr. Obama made a speech not long ago, and you can YouTube it. And he said any man that would collude with another country to interfere in an election should not be the president. In fact, he should not be anywhere near any kind of senator, governor. These were his own words. Yet, and you can check all these facts, he sent Democratic strategists to Israel to try to defeat Mr. Netanyahu whose opponent was Palestinian and, lean towards Islam. And, I thought to myself, here he is explaining everything he did while he was in office. And you can check those facts. He actually spent taxpayer money to send Democratic strategists over there to collude and interfere in another nation's election. And yet he's got the nerve to talk about, Russian collusion. Well, if that's the case, now that was all made up. But him interfering with Israel is not made up. In fact, he said it openly. I mean, this was something, when it was only talked about for a week or so. But, I thought to myself, Here's a guy that's doing everything and has done everything that he's accusing Mr. Trump of doing. And I'll tell you one more thing that I found offensive, and I'll let you go.
Yeah,
Mr.
gotta
Biden
jump.
said about a week ago that he wanted Islam taught in schools. And everything I'm telling you is a fact. And, he's talking about in Michigan here, how he's going to, make manufacturing
Hey,
jobs.
Dan, that was your one more thing. We really appreciate it. We got to go. I do not remember hearing Joe Biden say that Islam should be taught in Michigan schools. If it was, it wasn't that it should be the only thing taught. I will tell you that world leaders interfere in elections all over the place, but I don't think Benjamin Netanyahu has ever run for re-election as prime minister against a Palestinian. So we're gonna try and check that. But Daniel from Trenton, we appreciate your call here on the Guy Gordon Show. My name is ML Elrick. I will be back tomorrow, I hope, and I hope you'll be with me. So thanks for listening. Thanks to Laura and Mike, and have a great evening, everybody. But first, get some traffic.
All right, that was fun. Let's do it again tomorrow.
So that really is our out. We don't come back after traffic then.
Yeah, we're done.
Okay, good. Well, then I'm glad I did sign off when I signed off. I wasn't quite sure there. Okay.
Butt dials, the guy Doug in Lansing. That sounded like it might have been.
I
Well,
talked to him.
Yeah,
I don't know
well,
what happened.
maybe he has a talkative butt.
he probably should have hung up and dialed 911. But best of luck, Doug.
All right, Emma. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. So, Laura, do we want to talk about what we want to do tomorrow, or should we just catch up in the morning again? I thought that worked out.
Yeah,
pretty
let's
good.
just chat in the morning and see what pops overnight.
Okay, and I'll tell you what, I'm going to reach out to Kathy Gray at some point because